Wait, I'm starting this one? Why am I starting this one? I think you should start this one. Fine. You smoke your weed. Fine, I'll pour a beer and vamp for a little bit. I'll start this. So, welcome everybody to episode 5, I want to say. Whatever, I've lost count at this point. Who gives a shit? To Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions. I am your drunk host. My name is Cory. My good companion Graham there is blowing weed out the window because he's smoking at his parents' house. He's in a new location this week.
I'm in a new location. Yeah, I'm visiting the folks for a belated 4th of July celebration. Always a fun time.
There's so many jokes about you being in the closet right now.
You go ahead and make them. You go ahead and do that. But anyway, I'm visiting the folks, and we have a schedule to keep, so we decided, hey, let's record anyway. Let's get used to traveling. And
which means you're going to give us subpar video and audio for me to edit this week. God damn it.
Exactly. Because I obviously can't edit it on time.
You did good with that one.
I could do this one. I would just have to rush it all in one go.
Spoilers, folks. We trade off on the editing of
spoilers, folks. Yeah, if you stay around long enough for
all 8 of you that watched,
if you stay around long enough for the credits, you'll see that we do share. We trade off editing, but nobody looks at the credits. I'm pretty sure Cory doesn't even make credits. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who edited in credits to my episode.
Yeah, that's a fact. I forgot. Sue me. But let's be honest here. Who's actually getting to the credits in our videos?
Who is listening to this? I don't know. I've just this last explanation lost the rest of our subscribers.
Like I just literally watched it go because according to YouTube, the average person watches for about a minute. The average person watches for about a minute, and we've been recording for 2 minutes, and so we're done. That's it. Show's over, folks. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Actually, according to the statistics, the average viewer watches 8 minutes of our thing before turning off. So
we got another 6.5 minutes or 5.5 minutes?
We got another 6.5 minutes of bullshit that they are just not going to enjoy.
Okay. So while we entertain them, folks, why don't you tell us what you're smoking tonight? Or not smoking, for that matter. I'm doing
a little something different. I'm always smoking, and you saw me smoking just a moment ago.
But, always be smoking.
Always be smoking. But I'm doing something a little different this week. I always want to have something that can wet my whistle. Something I can wet my lips with, and so I've been looking for weed infused beverages, and they're not always the easiest thing to come by, especially with how limited cannabis is to the general public. So I got this from I went to a wonderful dispensary west of Tacoma, Washington, in a little town called Purdy. The store is called Sweet Jane. Little shout out to Sweet Jane. In Purdy, Washington, Sweet Jane. Lovely place, lovely people who work there. I've never had a single problem. Every person there has always been incredibly helpful and just always excited when I ask them about weed. I'm always wanting to find something new to smoke. I'll go in there and say, what do you recommend? I never just go in and say, I want this. I always ask for their recommendation. They always come back with 6, 7 different strains. They're like, yeah, you're going to want this. This is good. I also like this one. This one really slaps, or this one gives you a nice head high. So the people are lovely there. If anybody's in Washington area, you should totally go and check out this place, and shout out to Sweet Jane. And so I was there and I picked up wonderful strawberry banana flower, which is what I'll be smoking for my one hitter.
Strawberry banana flower. That's the strain?
That's the strain I'm smoking.
Does it taste like a strawberry or banana?
Yes.
That wasn't very convincing. I don't believe you.
And then as far as beverages go, I have found something. Looks like a company called Mojo, or that's the product.
Is it Mojo or Moho? I think it's a soft J. Yoggin?
It could be Mojo, Moho. If any representative of this company is listening to this, please reach out because I'd love to know. Anyway, it's a great product.
Shameless plug.
I'm currently drinking their root beer, and let me tell you,
hold it up to the camera. Let me see that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how the J is dotted with a pot leaf. That's some nice branding right there.
Yeah, I do like that. And so, yeah, I've just been enjoying this, and it's lovely. It's good stuff.
Lovely, you say.
And what are you having over there, Cory? Same old, same old?
Yeah, it's still summer technically over here in Minnesota. So I grabbed another case of summer shandy, Lonnie Kugels.
Ooh,
Yeah,
lovely.
it's such a good beer. So I'm going to be drinking that for the majority of the night. But depending on the shit you say, and let's be honest, I know the shit you're going to say, chances of me having a deal something stronger are highly likely. So if this turns dark, if it's no longer a light beer looking color, I have switched over to rum and cokes to deal with Graham's high ass. So,
and if you see this empty before the end of the episode, then you'll know that Cory has gotten on my nerves.
Oh, that's a fair bet. I'll take that bet. I'll take that action. Sign me up.
Finish the whole thing.
Chug. What is it? What did you say that was? How many milligrams?
100 milligrams. 100 milligrams.
So your average weed has so your average weed into your average joint. For those who are not potheads, how much would you say average weed, average joint in terms of milligrams?
Probably like 10 to 20.
Okay, so drinking one of those is approximately smoking 10 joints, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, 5 to 10 joints, basically.
5 to 10 joints. All right. Well, what do you say? I'm gonna get myself a refill. You do whatever it is you stoners do. We'll go ahead and get this show started. Sound good?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I'll let a bowl.
All right. This week, Graham, I was thinking. So we recently got. I mean, we talked about the Sony State of Play a couple weeks ago. We've talked about Xbox, but a couple of days ago, I don't remember the exact date. We got a trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the sequel to their remake that came out a couple years ago. Which, in and of itself, is obviously a remake of the 1997 Square. That's time Square Soft, but now Square Enix classic. JRPG. You saw the trailer, right?
Mm-hmm. Several times. I consider Final Fantasy VII Remake the first one in this new trilogy that's coming out. That's one of my 3 favorite games of all time. And I love Final Fantasy VII, the original, but the remake, the combat, the flow of the story, the extended work that they put into it, I adore it. It's such an amazing game.
Well, I was thinking this week we would deep dive into let's talk about Final Fantasy VII. I mean, this game just had such a huge fucking impact on the gaming industry and culture as a whole. So let's start off the bat and just throw it out there for all 10 of you that are watching this. 8, 5, 4, 3. Oh shit! I better.
Stop. We've lost them. Oh no!
Come back,
please! No.
All right.
I'm begging you.
For all one of you that are still watching, there's going to be some spoilers to this video game. Final Fantasy VII, huge game back in 1997. It originally came out on the PlayStation 1 by the Japanese developer game, like I said, Square Soft, but they are now Square Enix.
Yep.
And this game was huge, both in the time and nowadays. I mean, 20 some odd years later, it's still just an epic.
The franchise was already gaining lots of momentum, both in Japan and in the Western world. America had loved Final Fantasy as we had it in America, released 2 and 3, but was actually 4 and 6. And so Final Fantasy was already becoming a huge franchise in around the world, and people were loving it. And then 7 came out, and it was this whole new direction. It was the same feel, the same kind of combat, the same kind of world, but with a little bit more science-y stuff to it. And it was all 3D. very cyberpunk, but and then all of a sudden it just was 3D. It was this like totally different dimension to the Final Fantasy games, and it took off
I
from
still
there.
maintain they look like bad Lego characters, but whatever.
They do. They do. In 7, they do. Weirdly
graphics
enough.
don't age all that well, I think. I mean, they're good, don't get me wrong, but it's just if you go back and play the original, you're like, oh, this is antiquated.
It's very bad, yeah.
Versus
like
you play
in terms of graphics.
any Final Fantasy 1 through 6 with the pixels, even not the pixel remasters, but even just the old original pixels, like that pixel art holds up.
It's beautiful, yeah.
But
yeah,
7
gorgeous.
being the first, like you mentioned, the first 3D one. It created a lot of shockwaves. It was the first Final Fantasy released in Europe, which I thought was kind of a cool fun fact about it. And it was the first time they synced up the titles, because there was not a staggered release, but they changed the name of the Final Fantasy games, as you mentioned, between Japan and America. And so 7 was the first time they came together. They
didn't think that Americans would like seeing Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI on the shelves, and then thinking, where the hell are 2, 3, and 5? Like what is this?
Yeah.
We have 1, 2, and 3.
What is this hot garbage?
We have 1, 4, and 6. What is this? Are you only releasing the good ones, or are you releasing the bad ones and keeping the good ones from us?
I was going to say no. I think the former, because those were the good ones. 4 is also considered one of the best Final Fantasies, and 6 is. There's a contention between whether 7 or 6 is the best. So,
but what I was getting at is that people would be confused as to why it was going that way, and so
because we dumb, we dumb.
Well, no, just people in general are stupid. Just the world, we're just idiots. I'm a nihilist. Obviously,
it's your optimism that I love about you, Graham.
I'm an optimistic nihilist. That's the title of the episode. I'm an optimistic nihilist.
Put that on your business card.
I'm a professional optimistic nihilist. Hi, the world is great, but the people suck.
You're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
I'm just an asshole, exactly. But
Well, let's talk about why 7 was such a great game. I mean, so beyond the fact that it was just groundbreaking in the 3D and the graphics, but it was the story. The first 6 games had a great fantasy aesthetic, but this one modernized it, and then the story was just groundbreaking. Like they, not only were they able to incorporate this really good CGI to tell the story, but it just had a gripping story of these unique and interesting characters that breathe new life. And then the best part is it subverted expectations. This game had so many twists and turns and so many moments that just you were floored by it. And that's one thing I loved when I played through it the first time. Even though by the time I got through it, it was mid to late thousands. How old am I?
Yeah.
It was 2006. So yeah, mid 2000s. I was in high school. And so about 10 years after the game came out. And I knew chunks of the story of what happened. So it wasn't a shocker, but it still was just how cinematic it portrayed things and how it just kind of so again, we mentioned spoilers. So 3, 2, 1, this game featured is considered probably the most shocking death in all of video games. You meet this girl very early on in the story. She becomes your main protagonist heroine. And within a third of the game, she dies. She gets stabbed. She gets run through by a katana by the game's antagonist and fucking dies. And I mean, you're like, wait, what? Huh?
It was the first time. It was the first time, basically, that Final Fantasy had said characters are mortal. And
so what you're saying is they did Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones.
They did. Well, I mean, no, because they missed the cutoff by a year, because Game of Thrones, the book, A Song of Ice and Fire, Book 1, Game of Thrones, came out in 1996, and Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997. So they just missed the cutoff. But not the point. Not the point. Not the
What's your
point,
point?
Graham. No, my point is that that was the first time that they'd done that, and I know that like diehard Final Fantasy fans will try and say, "Oh, you don't know shit," because Final Fantasy V kills Galuf. I'm going to tell you something right now that does not count because he dies, and then his granddaughter just assumes all of his stats. Everything that you've been building with that character, so it doesn't feel like you've lost it. It's just like, oh, it's a different pixel creation right in that spot. So yes, you lose a character, but you're not really losing that character. In Final Fantasy
could also be
VII,
argued
you've
about
been
6,
building
because 6 you lose you have 6 gave you like agency, and you could lose characters if you didn't make the right choices.
That's true. Okay,
but that's the
you
thing
know
is
what?
they was based on your choices. 7 gave you no choice. They didn't give you a substitute character. She was your white mage, meaning she's your healer and your buffer, and she just flat out.
That's true. Final Fantasy VI, you could get to the end of the game with every single one of the vast ensemble of characters that you could get in that game, which was I think 12 or 13, including all the side characters. It might be higher than that, but I think it's 13. But Final Fantasy VII, like you could get all the characters. You could, if you did the right steps, you could have all of them. Final Fantasy VII, like Cory just said, you couldn't do.
There was no circumventing the scene.
Yeah, there was nothing going around it.
You played through the game, and it was part of the story. And then one of the best fun facts I love about Final Fantasy VII is there was there's a term for it, and I'm too drunk to remember, but like. Gamers, there was a fire spread of rumors of how to get Aerith back into your party after she dies. And this is, before being able to deep dive into code was a thing. So, and breakdown games and
so it became like a copy pasta urban legend
creepypasta
kind of thing.
Yeah, it was one of those things where there was people thought they were like, oh well, if you do this and this, you'll get Aerith back, or you got to go do this, or if you did this, then you won't get that scene. And it's like, no, it's all bullshit. Like, doesn't matter how you slice it, that bitch dies.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that really
sad.
kind of it's very sad. It's so emotional and
because you've really gotten to know the character, and especially if you've gone down the route because it's part of a love triangle. So if you've gone down the route of having Cloud start to fall in love with her,
well, let's even back up.
Well, yeah. So
back up because you got So for those who don't know the game, the main protagonist, most of the Final Fantasy games have an ensemble cast of a bunch of people, but they always get like a one person who's like the main one you start with, and you follow their journey through the story. And in 7, you get a guy named Cloud Strife who comes off as just this arrogant, aloof, loner, kind of an asshole who claims to be a part of this high military service known as Soldier. He's like the best of the best in the world. So the Soldier works for a company called Shinra, which are a big energy company that are siphoning the life energy of the world, of like the planet.
Yeah.
Think about like if somebody was draining the core. That's what this company's doing. They're killing the planet for profit. So he gets upset at the company, leaves Soldier, and joins this eco-terrorist group known as Avalanche to basically fight against them. And that's where the story picks up. But again, he's a loner. He kind of is an asshole. And he's working with a guy named Barrett, who's got this big burly dude who is very passionate about saving the planet. He's the leader of Avalanche.
Barrett's the best. I really loved the way they did him in Remake, where because the thing about the original game is it does a lot of things well. It does a lot of things great. It only does the characters somewhat justice because it's so limited by its technology. You're not able to quite get every single personality across just based off of, because they often will repeat their like same animation of characters going whoa, like by surprise or something like that. Whoa. But like,
hold on, one more time.
But you know how those old games would have that, like those animations that they reuse. A lot of new games have that too. They're just starting to like move on from it, but they'll reuse the same assets of like character movement to express a certain emotion. And so when all the characters do a certain movement to express a certain emotion, then they all start to become the same. They start to feel like the same character. So the benefit the benefit of having this new remake was all the fact that we had actual actors portraying every single one of the characters, and it totally made Barrett a better character for me, was because in the original game it's not quite shown why everybody is following him in the quest to save the planet. Like, the only explanation is he wants to save the planet and he's the only one doing anything about it, so they follow him. But here they actually showed, oh man, he's inspirational as fuck. Like, when he thinks that the cameras are on him and he's speaking to the city, he knows that they are turning off the microphones, but just in the off chance that somebody's listening, he goes off and he's like, man, the company is destroying the planet. We got to do something. We got to rally together. We are brothers and sisters on this planet. And it's so moving. You're like, I understand why these people follow him. He's charismatic as fuck. And
I think part of that also, you know, when you play the original game, there's no spoken dialogue. It's all text boxes.
Exactly.
And so you kind of put your own inflections on it. And it's not, you know, and sadly it kind of falls into that gray area. Like, when you read a book, you get text, but you can also get the adjectives to the text. So, you know, Barrett said something angrily, or, you know,
and then you can go inside their
too high
mind
to remember how this sentence goes.
And then not only can you, in a book, can you say what the person was feeling when they said that, you can also explain why they were feeling that way.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, what? Cried out Cory. Cory had been earlier that day thinking the same thing, and he'd
been out of booze, but he found out more.
Exactly. Like, you can go and have another few sentences where you explain exactly why they just said that, which you don't get in a video game. It's just text boxes.
It did a decent job at the time. I mean, you gotta look at it the lens of 1997. So at the time it was great, but now it's just like, it's subpar. So yeah, I totally agree that what's his name? John something. I'm too drunk to remember, who did the voice acting for Barrett, did just a fantastic job. I mean, all the people they brought in for the voice acting, which, excuse me, at the time of the game's announcement, I was a little upset that they didn't bring back the folks from Advent Children, and we'll talk about that shortly.
The actor who voices Barrett and who portrays Barrett in the new trilogy is John Eric Bentley. Little shout out to him for a fantastic job. Shout out to the entire cast. Shout out entire cast.
Britt Barron and Brianna White as the other character, as Tifa and Aerith respectively, and then
absolutely Cody Christian, and I think Cody Christian did a great job as Cloud. I know a lot of people thought that the character seemed a little bit one dimensional, but honestly, I always felt like the way the story of Cloud went in the original game, and some of his overexpressive, at times overexpressive didn't make sense.
Yeah. So when you know the story of Cloud, I think having him be kind of one dimensional makes sense. Exactly. So this is kind of jumping ahead in the story, and again, spoilers, heavy spoilers. So the whole story is, so they're trying to stop this big company from sucking out the planet's, what they call life stream. It's the planet's life, and cause a mass extinction. You go on this romping adventure to stop not only this corporation, but you're also pursuing a character known as Sephiroth, who, even if you're not a gamer, you've probably heard the name. Big, tall dude with a giant ass katana and long silver hair. Like he's just so iconic in video games. Is one of the most. He's the Darth Vader of video games, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just everybody knows him, and so the story
either him or Solid Snake
or Bowser.
Yeah, or Bowser. It's between those three,
maybe. Yeah. But anyway.
Okay, fair enough. There's a lot.
Moving on. So there's two concurrent stories of trying to stop this corporation from draining the life of the planet, but Sephiroth is trying to encourage that, because what he plans to do is to cause the planet so much damage that so that when the planet tries to heal itself, he can absorb the planet's energy and become a god. And this is also predicated on the fact that he's got alien DNA in him, which just goes into some more weird shit. But
there's a lot of levels to this game.
Yeah, I don't want to say.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that
all day
as
just
in
trying to explain the story.
I don't mean levels as in like, oh, there's like 20 levels in the game. No.
World 1, World 1, 2, World 1, 3.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it. I don't mean there's literally a lot of levels. No. There are so many different layers to the complexity of the story.
So you're saying this game is like Shrek? It's got layers.
It's got a lot of layers. This is the Shrek of video games.
Like a parfait?
That's the title of the episode.
Like an onion?
It's an onion. It's cut layers. Yeah. So it has so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
Cloud's story is like really intriguing because it did something that like a lot of the 90s, like late 90s stories did that worked so well, is these like plot twists. So you find out in the game that, you know, Cloud has been portraying himself as this badass soldier and he's an ultimate fighter and kind of aloof. But you learn that he actually failed at joining Soldier when he was a kid. And then due to some circumstances, he squared off against Sephiroth, who is like the ultimate swordsman and badass in this game, in this world. He squared off against him, lost, and became the subject to experiments with his buddy Zack, who Zack was a first-class soldier and was a badass. And because of the PTSD that Cloud went through and with Zack, he implanted the memories of Zack as well as some stuff that he made up in his own head. Mm-hmm. And like assumed Zack's identity. He basically developed dissociative. I'm too drunk to say.
Yeah. He remained Cloud. He remained Cloud in name, but he took on Zack's personality and PTSD and memories and such, and presented him exactly. And so he still thought of himself as Cloud. He thought that all of his memories that he had were of Cloud. He didn't realize that he had absorbed Zack's thoughts and feelings and emotions about the world and memories, and he didn't realize he'd implanted them. He didn't realize that they had integrated with his so perfectly that he'd almost changed to a completely third person. Yeah, so it's an absolute bombshell where you realize that you're not playing the character you think you've been playing all this time, and you're now
not playing a hero. You're not playing a hero. You're playing a reject, a nobody, really.
You're not playing who you think you were playing. It's playing
like a Fight Club twist with with the narrator and Tyler Durden, where you think you're following one guy and it's like, it's a different guy. It's the same but different. It's like the reverse Fight Club almost.
Yeah, and
it's so trippy. And this is like the second big twist of the game.
You realize that he wasn't the protagonist, but he is now. Like, he becomes the protagonist by the revelation that he is not who he thought he was, and like goes on the healing path. Like, I think that's the true sign of a hero is somebody who goes on the healing path.
But and you can understand why he would become sort of one note, because he doesn't quite, when we pick up where, when the game picks up, he's kind of all
confused about
recently.
Himself.
So it's all kind of settling and he doesn't know. And so he's just really aloof and he confused and indifferent and just, a unique, kind of an enigma. So having him be very shallow, it kind of works, especially in the new game, because like he actually has a lot of depth and there's going to be a lot of character development there. So to show that contrast, I think you need him to start shallow to realize how deep he actually goes.
I agree, and that brings us to what they did in the remake. We've pretty much talked about what they did in the original game, and then they did something very interesting with the remake, something that I really liked, but it was quite controversial upon release. And that is they remade not the game, they remade the story. And they reinvented it, so to speak. I think Cory described it to me once in a wonderful way. It's similar to how in the 2009 J.J. Abrams reboot of Star Trek, it is not a remake of the original series. It is more of a continuation through another universe. They took the original game, had the entire story, obviously, and the first few hours of it is just in this massive city of Midgar. So what Final Fantasy VII Remake did was it only did the first city of Midgar. Everything that takes place in those first few hours, first roughly 8 hours of gameplay from the original game. And they expanded that to 45 hours roughly. And with many, many chapters, and they took little tiny sections that were only like mentioned or barely talked about and just grew and grew and grew and added stuff, added little things that weren't in the original, including spirits that were supposed to like be arbingers of destiny, so to speak, that wanted whispers of destiny that were trying to push the characters along the path of the original game. And because they keep slightly diverging from the original path, these whispers start to push them back into the path. And so basically by the end of the game, spoilers, they kill Destiny so that in the next game, when they continue with these remakes, they do not have to rely on the original game story to do what happened. So they opened up the possibility of saving Aerith. As we talked about earlier, Aerith's death was a huge thing. Everybody wanted Aerith back. Everybody wanted her to, survive. And this opened up the possibility of saving Aerith in the future. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, but I think it's interesting what they've done.
By the end of it, you circumvent what these whispers are trying to do, and you've basically created a new timeline, similar to how the 2009 Star Trek is a reimagining on a new timeline of what the original series was. But it also ends where we see a scene of an alternate universe. So you've played this whole game, these 40 hours, play through one part of the story, and then you get a cutscene showing Zack, who. So what happens is after Cloud is experimented on and with his buddy Zack, they escape and make their way to this capital city of Midgar. And on the way, in the original storyline, Zack is killed. And that's when Cloud imprints the memories, picks up Zack's sword, and carries on his legacy by assuming his identity.
He watches Zack die in his arms.
Yeah. In the remake, they show this scene again, but Zack survives in this another timeline. So I don't know if either A, we're seeing a third timeline because they broke Destiny in the remake, or is that the original timeline, or is that but it's a different universe, parallel universe to the one you were playing in. Yeah, things are changing hard.
Things are changing.
Remake, so remake ends on a huge note, and then I think Rebirth is going to end with like the convergence of that. I think Cloud's going to come out realizing who he is by meeting Zack, and just to throw in a little more context of a little bit of something interesting. Aerith, the one who dies in the original game, and Zack had a relationship.
Yeah.
So you were talking love triangles earlier.
That is why Aerith finds herself weirdly attracted or drawn to Cloud in the first place, is that he has imprinted Zack into his mind, and his personality. So she is seeing the man that she fell in love with in another person's body.
Doesn't she say that a few times? Like, you remind me of somebody.
She keeps mentioning that he reminds her of somebody who also was in Soldier, and he asks what his name is, and she says, "Oh, you wouldn't know him." And the thing is, when she says that, he probably wouldn't. Because I think he erased Zack from his brain. He incorporated Zack into himself.
His conscious memory,
his conscious memory. So he absorbed Zack as if he was. They were two people in one, and so it takes literally hallucinogenic death dreams for him to realize what happened, and for him to have Sephiroth go Voldemort into his mind and start showing him what's real and what he's been suppressing. It's it's honestly one of the most fascinating video games in terms of psychology, just in terms of philosophy and psychology and the struggles of mental health, as well as like how
to
people
cope with death.
Yeah, how to cope with death and what it is to go through, fucked up world with fucked up situations, and also dealing with how the world treats like the planet, how we treat the planet. It's a
very
great
heavy message of eco.
Very heavy,
eco. what's the follow up?
Conservationist.
Yeah, there you go.
It's very
That's a good word.
conservationist. It's very, very much about like we can build. We just have to be very, very conscious of what we're doing. You know, that ends up being what the eco terrorists are all about. Is like, can we just be respectful of the planet? We just want to be respectful of the planet. Please take out your fucking things that are extracting the veins of the planet.
So we've talked about Remake, and so now we have Rebirth on the horizon, which obviously will continue the story. And we've seen the trailer. It shows some interesting scenery, including like Cloud and Sephiroth traveling together. People are like, "Is this a flashback? Is this imagination? Is this a new story arc?" It begs
So
I have a theory on.
I have a theory on why he's traveling with Sephiroth. I believe it's because this Sephiroth knows. I don't think he is the Sephiroth from the original timeline, but he knows what happened. He's seen it. He's had a vision of it. So I think he knows the original timeline, the original game's like course. And I think he's trying to redirect them. Not necessarily, he's trying to get them to go in the right direction, but he's trying to make things happen differently.
So where's this one from, though?
What do you mean?
So the game, where every iteration of Final Fantasy VII picks up, Sephiroth is dead for 5 years, or presumed.
Yes.
So, because he got thrown in, and then he got thrown into the life stream, and he was presumed dead. Turns out his actual body is sitting in a crystal, some crystal life stream Mako in the northern crater the whole time.
Yeah.
So like his physical form is nowhere to be found in the original game, and that's way before the events of the original game even happened. So like, are you implying that the Sephiroth that this trailer shows is that Sephiroth, the one that was presumed dead and is now somehow back and living, or
he's projecting himself just like the original one, just like in the original game. That Sephiroth that is trapped in his Mako cage in the northern crater, that Sephiroth is like he's dreaming. He's just asleep. He's dreaming of what the world is, and I think that in his dreams he has seen an alternate timeline, the one from the original game, where he failed.
So now he's trying something different to not fail.
So now he's trying something different. Now he knows that he can do things right. He just has to redirect them. He has to put them on a certain path.
So in what reality?
Or he's going to try and change
Cloud
things at different locations.
To travel with Sephiroth. In what instance would Cloud go? Because Cloud knows that Sephiroth's a
I don't
douche
think
with a
that Cloud
bag.
was traveling with Sephiroth. I think Cloud was ignoring Sephiroth. I think in that footage, he was being plagued by Sephiroth, like talking to him, and he was just trying to ignore it. That's my theory. Okay. I think they were trying to show it off as like, oh, they're working together. And when I think personally, when the actual game comes out, people are just going to find that Sephiroth will keep showing up to like exposit story and also like what he's doing and what his plans are, or he's just going to try and get inside Cloud's head. And I bet there's going to be sequences where the other party members just seemingly vanish because Sephiroth is fucking with Cloud. And so he or Cloud's just trying to like block everything from his mind, but he can't get Sephiroth out. Which happens in the original game.
He gets possessed by Sephiroth several times.
Exactly. So that's what I think that walking sequence is what they were showing.
Okay.
That's just my personal theory on that. I don't. It could be that he is going with Sephiroth, but I don't see what Sephiroth could do to tempt him, especially after their huge fight at the end of Remake.
Yeah.
But I think there's a possibility. I think there's two things that they could do. I think that you killed Destiny, which means the world is open. So it could be that Rebirth is an open world, in the sense of it allows you to choose your path. So if you're a player who wants to go on the original path, and then you can go along those, like from to Calm, and then to the Chocobo Farm, and then the Mithril Mine, and then the all the places after that. I'm blanking on the names on high, but I think that they'll allow you, if you want to go on that path, you'll get pretty much the same story. But if you decide to go on a different path, then things will go differently. Probably not.
Interesting.
But it could be a thing that they do.
Do you think there'll be like multiple endings?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there will be multiple endings for the third one. That's true, because they couldn't do multiple endings for the second game, because then the third game would be a complete mess.
Not necessarily. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a game has like continued a story based on like a previous save file.
True. That's true.
You know, I think so Rebirth is expected out next year. I think whatever the third game is going to be called, my guess
I think Rebirth will allow you to transfer your data from the first game.
I totally think it would be a safe bet to, that you could change, I don't know if I fully subscribe to this theory. I'm I don't say pandering, because that's obviously a negative connotation, but I'm giving credit. I'm playing with you and your idea here. I could totally see where you'd have multiple endings, and then I think the next game, the third game, will also come out on PlayStation 5, and they've already announced that Rebirth is a PlayStation 5 exclusive.
Of course.
So I could see the third game coming out on PlayStation 5 and taking a save. If you have a save, it'll continue that story. Otherwise, your default will be whatever the original story was.
Okay.
It's like, okay, if you wanted to change things, you had your opportunity, but if not, we're just going to pick up Clouds in the live stream or Aerith's Dead, and then from the original.
You'll just get a much more detailed version of the original game. Yeah, but if you go in different orders, if you go to different places in different orders, or you skip over places, you find you go around, you skip the golden saucer. What happens if you skip the golden saucer? That would be an interesting.
What happens, Graham? What
I
happens?
don't know.
You get Kate Sith, because that's a useless fucking character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest. In Final Fantasy VII, none of the characters were useless, and all of them were useless because it all depended on what equipment you gave them and what materia, because every character was exactly the same.
2 characters were totally optional, which really pissed me off.
Yeah, and they're my 2 favorites.
I hated Kate Sith. Kate Sith wasn't optional. Yuffie was optional.
Yuffie and Vincent. Vincent Valentine is literally my favorite Final Fantasy character ever.
Did you ever play through Dirge of Cerberus?
No, I didn't. But I hear they want to remake it. That's one of their things that they're wanting to remake, with all the slew of games that they announced as a part of this new Final Fantasy VII franchise, which I thought is interesting. Final Fantasy VII is already a massive franchise with over 16 main games released, and 25 side games released.
You're talking about Final Fantasy in general.
Final Fantasy in general, they already have. It's already. I led into it. I said Final Fantasy VII, but I said that also Final Fantasy is already a big franchise.
You didn't. You said Final Fantasy VII is a big franchise with 16 games.
No, I didn't.
You're high.
No, you play back that tape, motherfucker.
I will.
You play it back.
Anyway, but you're not wrong. Final Fantasy in general is such a huge franchise, and then you have the sub within each one.
Yeah, and now this one game within that franchise is getting its own fucking franchise that's becoming just as big.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, you had there's a bunch of mobile titles like Before Crisis and First Soldier, which are mobile games. You had the movie Advent Children, which I'm curious to know what Remake and Rebirth and whatever the third title is going to be, what that does to Advent Children, which was a fantastic movie. Dirge of Cerberus takes place a year after that. So how does that mess with the storyline?
So my theory is that it's probably going to be named Revelations, Resonance, or Remix.
Nope.
Those are my 3 names I'm positing.
I'm calling it right now. Let's see. July 10th, 10:38 p.m. middle Central's time. Reunion.
Okay.
Because the term and my argument is the word reunion is just a key buzzword in the story of 7.
True. All right.
And I think that's also going to be the culmination of like all these storylines, the reunion, so to speak, of all these storylines coming together. You know, whatever the original story is, whatever they're doing with this storyline is, plus the storyline where Zach's alive, I think all that's going to converge in the third story.
You get reunion, and I get Revelations, Resonance, and Remix. And if you win, then I buy you 4 beers. Because you won with 1 and I had 3, and so I owe you for those 3 that I.
So does that mean if you win, I get to buy you one joint?
By
that logic,
yes. By that logic, yeah. You only have to buy me one joint because I had to go overboard to. If I got it with only 1, then I would expect like 2 joints or 3 or something. But because I went overboard,
on Matrix sequel titles, Revelations and whatnot.
I thought a lot about this. I spent an hour. I wrote a lot of notes.
So 55 minutes getting high and watching Parks and Recreation, and 5 minutes on the title. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you. Yes.
No, but one thing I wanted to stress is I do not think that we're going to get any new locations in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think we're only going to have locations we've seen before, with like stretching them out so much. And I'm not sure if they're going to do Final Fantasy
15, where they have this nice open world and there's combat. And I think they're going to add a shit ton of side quests that we didn't originally get. But the locations will be the same for sure.
Like 15, except 15 was an open world. I think this could be an open world. What is far more likely, in my opinion, is that just like Remake, which was 18 chapters, this is going to go chapter by chapter as well. And the first one is going to start out in Kalm, the city that they go to after leaving Midgar. That's going to be the first chapter where they go and we see like the background on like the Cloud's fake background, the first one that he
the
fabricated one that he believes is true. And that would be chapter 1 in my guess. And then chapter 2 would be traveling to and being in the Mithril Mine, including the Chocobo stuff. So you get like side quests in and around the Chocobo place. And then you go, and then in the Mithril Mine, there would be a few things to do. Nice shirt. Very appropriate. And then chapter 3 would be like going over to the Phoenix's mountaintop. I think it's the Phoenix, right? Or
no, it's a different name, but that's where you get the Phoenix Summon. Place Fort Condor, I think it was called.
Fort Condor, that's it.
Yeah. That is now like a strategic board game, kind of like Gwent in the Witcher games. You're no
Have
longer
you not
like
played the DLC for Remake?
I have not.
Okay, so it is. They introduced that game in the DLC, and it's quite fun. It's challenging, but it's quite fun.
Yeah, the original was fucking weird. I never understood it.
If they put that out as like a free game to just play online, I would.
Okay, so
think about it. If they didn't monetize the shit out of it, which they would probably do because they're Square Enix and they suck. So
there's a hot opinion.
Yeah, that's a hot opinion right now. Square Enix,
high opinion.
They're the people who own them suck. The developers are cool. The owners suck.
Well, I would, because I'm guessing you're referring to things like Avengers.
Yes, I'm speaking of games that go overboard. Yeah, the games that go overboard in trying to manipulate the customer into spending real money after already having bought the game just to get ahead in playing that game. Instead of just making a game that's enjoyable, they make a shit game and then expect you to pay money to make it slightly better.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So you're right. Intergrade introduced that mini game. I thought it was going to be part of the newer one, so I was wrong on that.
Yeah.
So maybe they take that mini game and make it more serious, and then when you go to Fort Condor, you kind of have to like treat it like the mini game, like you're practicing via the mini game, and then that's like the serious situation. And then That's how you get the Phoenix materia.
Yeah, I bet.
Because that mini game in the game, the original game, was fucking weird.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Did not understand.
I was replaying it recently, and I actually figured it out. It's complicated. It's actually, sorry, I'm high. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, no, I need to play Intergrade. But then they've also announced this Ever Crisis. Have you heard about this one?
Yeah, this one intrigues me. I don't like the way they're putting it out. It kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy 15, the mobile
the chibi version or whatever. The pocket.
Yeah, the really like poor, like faster version of Final Fantasy 15 that you could play on your phone, and then they put it on like Switch and other consoles as well, because why the fuck not? And basically, it was just dumbed down to Final Fantasy 15. But here, it actually looks more interesting. Like they're remaking the original Final Fantasy VII game with decent looking graphics, and the combat looks like, when you go into it, it's very, very reminiscent of Remake, except it's turn based. So they're using the animations of the new like PlayStation 5, slightly downgraded, but only slightly, and then using those as the turn-based animation for attacks and such.
See, I saw something different. I saw more like chibi sort of animations, but the kicker was they were incorporating the storylines of Crisis Core, which is a prequel.
Yes.
Before Crisis, which is also a prequel, the original game, Advent Children, which took place 2 years later, and Dirge of Cerberus, which takes place
They're doing everything.
Advent Children, so 3 years after the main story.
Everything.
So it's like everything is incorporated.
All of the old games that were part of all the spin-off games of the original that came before Remake are being incorporated into this game, but with this gameplay style that I was describing. It's still turn-based like Final Fantasy VII, the original one, but they've enhanced the graphics immensely. We'll have to put some footage over while I'm talking about this or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But
anything to not see your face.
Exactly.
Don't you worry, sir.
Yeah, Ever Crisis is just incorporating all the stuff that came before Final Fantasy VII Remake into one game, into one new remake. So basically, they are just monetizing the hell out of this franchise, and little part of me is worried. I love Final Fantasy VII. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like I said, top 3 favorite games. But I am a little worried. I used to love Star Wars a lot, and then they monetized the hell out of it, and just made so many shows and movies, and I just got so tired of it. And I still enjoy Star Wars, but just not as much as I used to. And so I am a little worried that the amount of Final Fantasy VII they're trying to give us is gonna just make me go, please kill me now. But I hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't.
See, I think the whole point behind Ever Crisis is actually going to be like a supplement, in the sense that it's, because let's face it, that the original game came out 25 years ago. A lot of the gamers nowadays are older or younger. I don't know. I'm too drunk to figure out what I'm trying to say, but I think as we've mentioned, Remake is going to subvert expectations and subvert the storyline, or at least give you the option to subvert the storyline. So they want to remind people what the original storyline was.
Yeah.
And instead of giving, being like, oh, go play our game that's, 25 years old and it kind of slow and graphics are kind of shitty and text boxes and whatnot. It's not an easy play. Let's be honest.
You could almost
relative to games, games.
You could almost argue that this is the Remind series. Like everything in this series reminds you of the original game.
That's what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to be like, hey, here's what the original story was.
Interesting. I like that.
Here's Before Crisis. Here's Crisis Core. Here's 7. Here's Advent Children. Here's Dirge of Cerberus. Here's everything in a tight, neat package that's palatable, It's something, it looks like you said, it kind of looks like the pocket game of 15, which means it'll probably come to Switch and people can play it on their own time. And it's easy to play. It's an easy pick up and put down versus Remake. Remake is a game when, or even the original, like you pick up, you're kind of playing it for a couple hours because the pacing and the combat and, and things like that. So like, here's an easy way to pick it up and put it down and just gain an understanding of what the original story was, so that when Rebirth comes out next year, with the amounts winter of 2023, when it comes out and they start changing things, they're like, what's happening, and that we're going to subvert those expectations. So that's my prediction for Ever Crisis. I think it's a reminder. I think it's a way to bring it all together so that people are aware of what they're doing with the new games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, there's no doubt we're getting a lot of Final Fantasy VII stuff in the next 3 years, and probably more will be announced. Like, if they are selling well, that they're going to keep going with it. So
I'm with you though. I kind of hope they slow back a little bit on 7. Like, do this Ever Crisis, remind people of the story. You got Rebirth coming out, and they're redoing Crisis Core, which I think agree. Also is kind of is like the whole motivation behind remaking Crisis Core, which, for those who don't know, Crisis Core was a PlayStation Portable PSP game that covered Zack's story. You played as Zack and kind of covered what he does and what he did leading up to meeting and befriending Cloud before he, spoilers, the game ends with him passing away. And then that's when Cloud absorbs quote unquote his memories and assumes his identity, basically. But like, it's Zack's backstory.
Yeah.
And so I think the reason they're remaking Crisis Core, not only was it a really good game that was, kind of ignored because it was on the PSP, but at the same time, I think Square is saying like, this is the OG story. We're about to fuck with it. As Remake has already teased, we're about to fuck with this story. So we want, as many people as possible who are interested to be aware of what that story is, so that when we fuck with it, you understand why.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited because, not only it looks like they've updated the graphics, they've updated the gameplay, they've updated the voice acting. So the voice acting in the new Remake is actually going to match the voice actors from Remake.
That's fun. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like Brianna White, who voiced Aerith Gainsborough in Remake, she came back and voiced Aerith in Crisis Core versus the original voice actress on the PSP. So
basically, it looks like they've completely obviously remade it, but it looks like they're trying to do the same like original style where it was just kind of like overhead at an angle looking at the characters, but it's just they've redone the character models, redone the textures on the areas, redone everything. It's just you're going through the same areas, but when you go into combat, it looks a lot more like Remake. Like,
did you ever play Crisis Core?
I did not. I've been trying to get my hands on it for years, but I've never been successful. I've tried to emulate it, and it's very difficult to get hold of that as well.
It honestly, I never played it, but I watched my friends play, and I've seen videos. It had a more live action style gameplay. It wasn't turn based. It never was.
Yeah.
The most unique aspect of it was this roulette system where, after certain attacks, you could do combos by hitting L and R together and stuff.
No, and I don't think that that's what they're doing with Ever Crisis. I think that they're just using more slightly dumbed
Crisis
down.
Core.
I know, but you were using that as a reference for the combat in Ever Crisis. What I was trying to say is
you're jumping back to Ever Crisis.
Yes, I just really wanted to clarify what I was getting at.
Sorry, you just jumped ship. That's the point. That's
never mind. Never mind.
We're talking about Crisis Core, and now you're talking about Ever Crisis. Stay on topic, Graham. God damn it.
Well, we only just jumped to Crisis Core 30 seconds
have a script,
ago.
And you're fucking with the script. God damn it.
I have no script. What are you talking about? You didn't give me a script.
All right, moving on. So Crisis Core PSP, but Ever Crisis does look like it kind of blends the original game and Remake together in terms of the combat and the gameplay.
Yeah. it's using almost the graphics of Remake, but the turn-based style. So they look like they're all in the same room as Remake, and they're all standing there, but you're using the same techniques of like attack or magic or like steal
Items.
based on what material you have equipped.
Phoenix Down, which I'm ashamed to admit it took me a lot longer than I am happy about to figure out that Phoenix Down is a Phoenix feather, because down being, feathers.
Yes.
Like a down blanket is filled with feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure that out. I was like,
that's
Phoenix
why
Down? What the fuck's a Phoenix Down?
That's why
and then
some
I think
games,
one Final Fantasy game showed you like throwing there was some game that showed throwing a feather, and I'm like, oh shit.
I always saw that the actual item was a feather. So that's I just assumed what it was. But I always assumed it was called a down. They called it Phoenix Down because you were supposed to use it on characters that were down.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my association. So I didn't think of it as a Phoenix down, a Phoenix slash down slash feather. I thought of it as a Phoenix that you use on a down character.
Yeah, it's kind of where I was like, oh, it's a Phoenix Down.
And I think that's why they did it.
Shit, it's a feather.
I think that's why they did it, because they wanted the word association. Like, oh, the character's down, use a Phoenix Down.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I'd also wouldn't be surprised if it was a translational thing, because, like, the localization of games.
You and I had that same thought, like, oh, that's what it probably is. You and I had that same thought, so it's very possible that more people. There's probably a lot of people. Let us know in the comments if you think that
all three of you.
All three of you, if this is something that happens to you, where you use just like word association, like, oh, that's probably what this is for because it's called that.
Yeah, this character's down. Use a Phoenix Down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm loving what they're doing with Rebirth. Oh shit, he finished.
You drove me to it.
Hi. Yeah, well, you drove me to rum and coke, so you know what? Fuck you, motherfucker.
We encourage everyone here to drink responsibly and handle their cannabis
handle
responsibly.
Your high, smoke responsibly, don't drink and drive, don't operate heavy machinery. Handle your fucking high, folks. Just like Graham and I do. We do these at our homes. Graham does them in the closet. Let's be honest, he's been in the closet for years. But in the meantime, everybody who's watching this, all three, oh shit, two, we lost one. To you. Like and subscribe, man. This has been a fun little episode on Final Fantasy VII of Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions, and we really hope to see you guys next week. So I'm going to continue getting drunk.
Cory. Yeah, you do that, and I think I'm going to call it. Honestly, that drink, 100 milligrams. I think that's too much.
Pussy.
I think that's just too much. I'm going to sleep well tonight. I'm going to tell you that much.
Yeah.
I'm going to sleep real well tonight. I'm going to sleep so well. Sleep so well.
How well are you going to sleep, Graham?
So well. Oh, my God. I'm going to sleep so well. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be so wonderful.
If that's your O phase, no wonder you're single.
You know what? Fuck you. I'm single because I'm single because I'm a needy bitch.
You heard it here, folks. If anybody wants a needy bitch, Graham's available. He's available for purchase. Free shipping and handling. All right.
Good night, Cory.
Cheers, everyone.